Welcome to the Apollo Artist Session live, and I'm here in Studio G in Brooklyn, which is in New York State, with Joel Hamilton right here, who is going to be engineering this Apollo Artist Session live. So what is an Apollo Artist Session live? Well, what we're doing is come to a studio like this, and this is Joel's studio. It's a nice place.
Thanks, man.
You know, I've seen a lot of places. It's lovely. And so
we vacuumed before you got here.
they cleaned up. That's what it is. Amazing. So here's the principle. Pick an artist. In this case, Lyrics Born. Put a band together in the studio. Live. Everybody is playing live. That's the old concept where everybody is in the same room at the same time playing music together, which is something that Joel does a lot. Run it through the gear that needs to be run through to make a record out of it in real time. No smoke, no mirrors. Microphones, preamps, Apollos, speakers, consoles, everything you need to make a great record in real time, stream live so you can see how it is.
Great people.
Great people, of course.
Musicians.
That goes without saying. Some musicians, which can also be great people at times. So
mutually exclusive.
Not mutually exclusive. All right. So today's broadcast is obviously, since it's the Apollo Artist Session Live, is sponsored by Universal Audio, and also by Gearsluts, who has been the forum sponsor for this, and Puremix, who's doing the live streaming. Lyrics Born is here. The whole band is here. They're waiting. But before we go on to the music part of our program, we are going to geek out.
That's pretty easy for me.
Yes, it's easy for me too, and I think it's easy for some of the people who are there watching. That's the whole thing. So today what we're going to do is literally going to track and mix in 2 hours the record from scratch.
Cool.
So no pressure for the musicians. It's all good. And this time they gave me... No,
or the people running all
well, you do
others,
this in your sleep.
yeah. I'm sleeping right now.
Yeah, oh, I can tell. I got cue cards like a real talk show host. It's amazing. Maybe we should have like 2 chairs and pipes and a little...
Pipes?
Yeah,
what?
You know.
What the hell
old
talk
school.
show has pipes?
But yeah, they're all British ones. I don't watch TV, as you can tell.
Right.
All right.
You're just making it up. Maybe we should have flippers and a snorkel, you know, like a talk show.
Next one. So I'm told that if you enjoy... I'm told that if you're enjoying this, you should share it, which is a basic thing, so that more people can watch it. I'm sure your friends would be delighted to watch that. And also, they should watch it because the Apollo giveaway, because there's a giveaway, someone's going to win an Apollo. And that giveaway is still going, and it's going to go until 5 p.m. So if you have a friend who would like to have an Apollo or a chance of having an Apollo, I would tell them to come watch this. It should be fun. The giveaway is at 5. Well, closes at 5, and then we'll announce the results at the end of this session. And then if you have questions while we go, I have a bunch of questions already here from the Gearsluts forum, but if you have more questions, then ask them on Gearsluts, and then Ben, who's behind the scenes right here, will write him down another cue card like this and give them to me, and I'll try and put them through so all your questions are answered. Okay? So the first thing I'd like to do is to try and situate everything so that people have an idea of what's going on, because this is a big studio, a Studio A, right? So and this is the room that you work in the most.
Yeah,
okay.
For the most part.
So you're very used to this. Okay. There's a lot of gear, so I'd like to try and demystify a little bit how things are connected and how things are going. And to that extent, I've written with my little furry hands a little diagram that attempts to explain what's going on. So at times, if the diagram is on the computer, so we can switch that image when it gets too confusing, and I'll try and explain it. But basically, so basically, we have instruments and microphones. What's the setup for the show today? Who's playing what, when?
We have a bunch of different stations here because the original track was stacked. So there are a bunch of layers, you know, like I don't even know who actually produced the original track along with LB. But you know, there's a bunch of overdubs, obviously, like a loop drums, you know, a bunch of different things happening. So each of those things, since we're going live, has to be represented by an actual person happening live. So we've got live kit here. We have bass player over here, bass station. We have synth keyboard world with the Moog Model D, a Juno, and the Mellotron. We have guitar, where the amp is actually in the booth, but the player is out in the live room.
Behind you, Steve.
Yeah,
right there.
There's a Princeton in there.
So it's a short Fender, small Princeton amp.
Yep.
And the guitar player is sitting here, and then you're feeding it
through the wall.
Through the wall,
Yep.
and then you're miking the amp.
Yep.
Okay. Then what
And
else?
there are tie lines in the booth, obviously, so we
Yeah.
don't have to pass the mic back out into the live room.
Okay.
Just the microphone. And then there's a single mic in the piano, what's normally the piano booth over here for the horn section.
Let's go take a look.
Yeah, there's 3 horns in there.
There's 3 horns in this space. Good.
Want
I
to go
hope-
in?
Yeah, after
Okay.
you.
And slam. So there's just one RCA 77 in here,
Which is a ribbon mic.
and the 3 guys are just sort of, you know, I've recorded them a ton of times, and so I knew that they would know sort of how to distance themselves from it. I didn't have to coach very much. Originally, we would have to normally, but these guys just sort of know how to balance themselves into a single mic.
So the horns are going to be mono.
The horns are mono.
One microphone.
One microphone.
Cool.
Absolutely mono. All my favorite records, the horns are mono. And they sort of become stereo because of a plate or because of other effects.
Exactly.
You know.
Yes. But a lot of people are, that seems very foreign. You know, there's 3 players, you should have 3 mics, you know, but as you can see, probably not.
Yeah, no. I mean, the way that the section sounds is ultimately what I'm trying to get, rather than the way that the individual horn sounds at the mouth, you know, or at the bell of each instrument. So I'm much more concerned with the way that they're engaging the air and the way that that will be registered at a ribbon mic.
So that's going to be a very interesting thing to listen to for a lot of people. Let's look at what you did with the. So the guitar is going through this positively ancient old Boss pedal.
Yeah.
What's
That's the original Boss chorus. There's sort of like this 80s vibe in LB's track that just does it perfectly. It gives the guitar a little bit of animation, you know what I mean?
Yep.
With the part that he's playing, you don't really catch it. It doesn't come, you know, turn it into Duran Duran. He's still playing a part that's very much funk, but it gives it sort of that later Morris Day type of Minneapolis funk sound that we were looking for. It sounds like that to me in the sample.
Well, let's see. Let's see what happens in here. Sorry, Steve. So in here we are in the guitar. Ah, yeah, I recognize that sound.
Yeah. That's a real amp.
Yeah.
But that we're using the silver face for no real reason. It's a little cleaner. I'm a Princeton freak, so I kind of have one from almost every series that they ever made, and this one's just kind of clean and bright, and the Verb's cool.
Cool. Yes.
So that's it. That's the only thing in this room.
And that's
except for some crap.
an SM7 with the
Yeah.
the foam removed.
It's the SM7 with the foam destroyed.
Ah.
We removed what was left of the foam because
I
it was
see.
ugly.
Okay.
And almost always, I use those things on electric guitars all the time, so I don't really care about having the pop screen. So I sort of gave up on having them. We do have a few that are nice and clean, but we just don't even put them on.
Okay.
I don't need it on a guitar.
Great. Just one mic.
Just one mic.
Really?
Focus.
Focus.
Focus, man.
Okay. And so so since we're here, let's talk
Yeah.
about this this station here. What's going on?
We have individual DIs. It's actually just all DIs for the Mellotron, one of the newer ones. I used to have one of the ones that was actually tape-based, and it just became a nightmare. It's just this is such a great sounding device,
Yep.
and it works every single day in a studio that has to work every single day.
And it's in tune.
And it's in tune.
Amazing
and,
concept.
And thankfully, there's the provision to even make it drift, and all the parameters are there to do some of the fun old Mellotron things. They were really smart about that thing. The Juno 60 is classic.
Yep.
And again, these choices are based on listening to the original track that we're actually doing a live band version of. And so there was kind of this, break-in soundtrack synth thing happening, and it just screamed Juno. It was just so obvious that that's what was going on. And then the Moog, Borum Lee is playing all this stuff, and I know that he knows his way around this thing, and there's a few fun little moves that he could make on the mini Moog.
Okay,
And
so
that Model D reissue is beautiful.
yes. So there's 3 synths. This one is the Mellotron is wired in mono. Are they all mono?
They're all mono, and they're going to individual unison pre's with the 1073.
Great. We'll talk about that when we get there.
Cool.
For those of you who got that, the unison pre's on the Apollo, and that diagram that I made will explain to you what goes where in a more visual manner, hence the diagram. Let's talk about drums.
Okay.
So the set is like made of several sets apparently.
Yeah.
Yes. So is that the studio set or is that a drummer set?
No, it's pieces that we have. We have a bunch of different kits, and these particular drums I've had on. I mean, that kick drum has literally been on 100 albums. I mean, I have no idea, and more singles than that. It's a 26-inch Slingerland that I love. It's kind of shallow, but it's big, The toms are just kind of funky. I mean, the whole idea is that this is supposed to sound like something that was sampled from a record that someone loved too much rather than abused. So lo-fi in the sense that you played the record so many times that the high end kind of got wound, worn off.
Yep.
Rather than that it was abused, which is a whole different sound with crackles and pops and skipping and everything.
Right.
This is about, actually making it's an abused term, but a warmer sounding kit because just the high end is missing, honestly.
So you have a bunch of a couple octaves on the microphones on the toms.
I've been using those since they were the obscure Russian mics, in the 90s.
And those are condensers.
They are condensers on the toms.
And
for
then
sure.
on the snare you have
It's called a Revox 3500, which is just sort of the Euro branding of a Beyer 201. There's a 56 as the under snare. Sometimes I'll usually use a condenser on the bottom snare. In this case, we just went dynamic top and bottom for again, this is informed by the original track, kind of tipping the hat to the samples that they use.
Okay. You have a pair of
The Coles.
the Coles on overheads. What's this stereo thing?
It's this like Manfrotto bar that I really like on these large stands that we use here. I love the Latch Lake stands, and this Manfrotto bar just works really well.
But the Manfrotto bar is a photo bar.
It is. It's actually for lighting and other things, but it works perfectly. It even comes with those exact mounts. We don't have to do anything weird to it, but it works brilliantly with this thing because it's actually the stand will stay up even with a couple heavy mics on it.
Actually, you have one stand here that does your overheads, your 2 kick drum mics. Oh no, one
kick mic, the front kick mic, which is a FET 47, and then the heart mic here, or what I always call the heart mic, which in this case is a TC30 Earthworks. It's just exactly what you think it is. It's an Omni that kind of catches the center of the kit. There's something about it that gives that sort of vintage vibe where it's the same top end response when somebody goes around the toms, this sort of kit image that's very focused, not very wide. Obviously it's mono, that mic is, but gives you just this sort of focus on everything. All the drums feel the same distance from the listener in that mic.
And so you have a 47 FET outside.
Yep.
And inside.
The E602 Sennheiser.
Okay.
And in this case, it's not pushed in very far. Usually I use it really close to the beater. Like I'll move it way into the drum and have it, 4 inches back from where the beater makes. A lot, but we're using a soft beater in this case. It's not to try to make it sound like Metallica, it's just for the impact and the sort of quick transient response right there in the center of the drum. I also high pass that one quite a bit.
So you get the percussion, but
just
you don't get
exactly.
Okay. And what's this guy doing here? Is that a talkback mic?
No, that's most of the drum sound. Actually, that's going to be most of the drum sound.
Can you guys get perspective on this guy to see how far it is from the kit? Because this is particular to Joel's technique, so it'd be interesting for him to talk to us about this mic.
Yeah, that's placed professionally at a random distance from the drum set that's not annoying to walk around to get to the horns.
That's a parameter. It's not in the way.
Usually, I'd probably pull it back another foot, but it was really annoying because it was in the way of the horn guys getting in and out, and so it's fine there.
So what mic is this?
It's an EV RE11, which I got at a pawn shop in Kansas City in the 90s for probably $20 or $10. And I've used that thing on almost every record I've ever made. And it's been sort of the wild card room mic that you drop behind the Wurlitzer, you know, like whatever. And it became a part of giving each production just sort of a landmine that I had to navigate in the drums, you know? And I kind of started to land on having it here over and over again because I liked the hat-snare relationship in it, most of all, and kind of the weird shell kick thing that happens in it. When we get to solo it later, we'll hear why it's there.
So you're blending all this, and then there's these two guys. These are definitely unusual.
They are. They're called Bova Balls. It's by Sage Electronics. It's a Canadian company.
Okay.
And these are mics in the last decade. Those have been on everything I've ever tracked. They're spherical Omni condensers. They're not $1 billion, but they act a lot like M50s at a distance. The thing that I love,
M50s.
the Neumann M50, which also is a spherical Omni, but inside of a case that inside of a body that looks like an M49. The thing I love about the spherical Omni is that it's actually Omni at the top, and then kind of towards the mid-range it becomes cardioid, and then it goes back to Omni at the bottom. So you can localize sounds in them. Sometimes I'll use them spread out, again, for space constraints. We don't have them on individual stands out to the sides. If we were doing this in a more overdubby way, or it was a three-piece band, maybe I would have had them spread out a bit. But I like the imaging I get from these. They're a little bit bright, but because I normally track to tape, that works really well for me.
Okay. And so you use this as supplement. What's your focus on the kit? What are you going to use most?
Well, it's a combination of the Heart mic, these guys, and that RE11, along with the outside kick. That's sort of at the core for me in this particular song.
Okay.
The high up overhead here.
Hi, gorgeous.
It's actually a U89 today, randomly, instead of a U87. That kind of animates everything else that's happening down here. That's getting compressed much more on the way in.
Okay.
Everything else, though, these have a little bit of compression on them. Nothing else has compression on it on the way in.
Okay. So I have a question here from Gearsless Forum from Sumesh Nayadi, who says, in multi-miking situations, and I think this qualifies as a multi-miking situation, how do you avoid phase issues?
You don't. You come up with phase relationships that are flattering. There's always going to be phase interaction. I mean, when I was referencing high passing the inside kick drum, that means that the FET 47 is sort of the only mic that's reproducing anything down at 40 hertz. That's like one mic at 40 hertz. And you don't have any phase issues that way at 40 hertz specifically. And so if there was something where I found we were getting a notch in an unflattering place, I would come out and move it. But otherwise, all the processing that happens so that we're sort of moving things around in time with compression and mostly just finding where these channels want to sit in relation to each other, meaning we're not just going to park the fader right at the null, you know, at the worst possible place for a phase inversion. So there is no way to avoid phase. You know, phase is music. So phase is stereo, phase is everything we're doing. What we try to do is have flattering phase relationships. Sometimes you have that two mics on the kick drum. Sometimes you wind up just randomly with the setup, some sort of notch at 200 that makes it sound like the kick drops an octave. And that's because of phase. That's because of the phase relationship.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and you love it. But so I would never try to avoid phase.
There's something that Joel just said that's really important. Don't forget, if you have a phase problem, is the fader can be your friend. The phase problems vary depending on the level relationship also. A lot of people forget that. So that was a quick nuggets that went through. Like,
no, for sure.
I have another question from Arthur Stone. Here's the question, they're going to rephrase it for this particular situation. When preparing for a session, do you have specific goals or waypoints plotted out in advance? So my question to you is, basically, this is a pretty heavy setup. Everybody's going to play live. The musicians are going to show up. They're professionals, so they're going to show up on time. How much of this do you have prepared in advance? And how much do you pre-plot?
If I'm producing, a lot. I have a lot in my brain as far as the marks that I want to hit. I even will center, and I'm not joking about this, I'll even center the sort of setup time versus lunch time and then creative time so that we sort of get to leave or clear the air and come back in not thinking about whether this XLR is broken or what we're doing with that cable or whatever. And we come back in thinking like musicians.
Translation that, meaning that what Joel does, I do too, is you do the boring, complicated, error-prone, breakage-prone setup in the morning, for example. Then you let the lunch break take care of cleansing, and then you come back and make just music after. That stuff is being designed ahead of time by the producer or the engineer of the session to maximize the return on the musician's time.
Absolutely. I mean, and definitely there's, every mic that goes up, there's something in my brain, there's a vision, there's a destination in mind. You know, I'm not sure how else I would be informed, you know, by what's about to go down. It's not just sort of shooting in the dark. I mean, that's why these particular microphones are set up. It's why we chose old funky sounding toms. There was an idea that that's going to get the ball rolling in a direction that I want to take this track.
There are a lot of people who get confused about that too. Joel has been doing this for a solid 8 to 10 minutes in his career.
Life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the reason why he's able to say, well, I'm going to use these old funky toms, and then I will use this octave here, and I will use this R11 in his favorite out-of-the-way position. All that is informed by experience. So how long did it take you from the first time you got trapped in a control room and said, this is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life? How long did it take you to be able to sit in a chair over there and say, okay, I'm going to do this and be mostly right?
Well, I've literally have always seen the gear as a means to an end because I couldn't draw from such an extensive palette when I started. But so when I had 3 mics, I still had to think about where does this need to go and choose from the 3 mics rather than the 30 or the 300. Choose from the 3 mics what's going to best serve the vision that I had for the track or the sound at hand. And so really it's the same idea as having a jigsaw or a circular saw. You have to imagine what a birdhouse would be and then start to pursue that with whatever tools you have, whether you have to do it by hand or you have power tools to get there quicker. That to me that was at the core of any of this inspiration, is just seeing them as a means to an end.
It's not about the gear, it's about what the gear can do for you, provided you have the picture in your head of what you want the gear to do for you.
Exactly.
And also you don't need 300 microphones yet.
Exactly, or ever.
Yeah.
You know, not at once, it just becomes a deeper palette. If I have every color of the rainbow on the palette and I'm painting a sunset, I'm probably not going to use a bunch of them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm just going to choose what's appropriate to tell the story.
What he said. Okay, so this has been, I think we've covered everything relevant here. I have a couple more questions, but I think it would be, it's time to go over there where
Into the control room.
Into the control room where the rest of the shiny gear is.
Cool.
Okay.
All the other stuff that we can talk about isn't necessary.
Well, it's a point of view. After you, Your Majesty.
Man.
All right, so let's go to the control room. Okay.
Hey, look, it's Lyrics Born.
Hey! You saw some light, you came in? It's beautiful. All right, so I think this would be the right time to show this amazing piece of art I've created.
It is amazing.
Mino, if you could put the computer output on the screen and let me know when that happens. Okay, so, and I'm going to talk to this camera. As you can see on this fantastic Mona Lisa 2, the return piece of art, on the upper left you see the microphones we just discussed, and then a bunch of Apollos, because this is the interesting thing here is we're doing all this using Apollo converters and interfaces. And everything is actually done with a laptop. It's a MacBook Pro, off-the-shelf MacBook Pro made by the food company Apple. And that fruit company computer, MacBook Pro, is connected via Thunderbolt to a bunch of Apollos that are here in the back of your room. So everything is done with the Apollo converters and an Apollo extended system connected via Thunderbolt. And that's what you can see here. And there's things that have been done two different ways. Some of the mic pre's are going through the Apollo 8P using Unisync technology, and we'll show you that. And some of Joel's traditional signal path is going through his outboard mic pre's, which you can see on the bottom right here, and going through the Apollo 16s. And this is to show you that you can drop an Apollo system into a Pro Studio, A-line Pro Studio like this, and function with an Apollo system, just like you would with, I won't name it, but say an Avid HDX system, for example. No names. So,
or a tape machine.
Or a tape machine like that
Literally.
one over there.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who were born recently, that's a tape machine over there.
Mm-hmm.
We can do
less recently.
Sorry, less recently. You know, computers and all. So, of all the geekery we just described, which of the geekery is going through your outboard mic pre's, which are a bunch of Neves in the back, and which are going through the Apollo 8P with the Unison pre's?
Well, they're labeled, so we started with the so I know.
Yes.
We actually labeled them. We just started counting up through the drum set in the way that I normally do it, which is close mics first, and then I moved beyond that because when I did have a tape machine that scoured the edge tracks, I started to physically separate the kick in and the kick out as a safety.
Yep.
Because it physically lived far away from the edge. So anyway, we go up through the drum kit and then up through the guitar here on outboard pre's that are going into the line-ins of the
Apollo 16.
Of the Apollo 16.
So I have a Gearslux question from the dude, spelled D-U-W-D.
Hi,
Cute.
the dude.
Very cute. How do you incorporate outboard hardware with Apollo and UAD plugins? But this is one of the
Say that
ways.
again. I was still thinking about dude.
I think that's the point of the name.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate outboard hardware with Apollo and or UAD plugins? So this is one way. You're currently using outboard pre's.
Yeah.
And you are going through the line output of the pre is going to the input of the Apollo 16.
Yeah.
And that's the interface that Pro Tools sees. So you're using outboard EQs here to go through and to connect the microphone.
Apollo conversion.
Apollo conversion. In the case of the vocals, the bass, and the synths, you are using Apollo mic pre's with Unisync technology preamps, which you can show us in a minute because we can only see one thing on the screen at a time.
Right.
And you're basically integrating your outboard pre's for certain pieces of gear and the Apollo pre's for other stuff. For example,
And the console, though.
And
So there's even further processing
That is true.
on the output. But I'll follow your lead.
We're coming to that. For example, the lead vocal and the two background vocals are going through the Apollo Unison pre's.
Yep.
Okay, great. And Pro Tools
And the horns.
And the horn.
And the horns are on a 610, the UA 610 pre, to be grittier, and then the lead vocal and two backing vocals are going through the 1073s for a little bit of color,
Okay.
but not being ripped up the way the horns are.
Okay. So to translate that is what's happening right now, because you speak fantastic English.
No, it's
I mean,
cool.
for a
Thank you
native,
for
you're doing very
translating.
well. Yeah. What's going on right now is we have some 1073 preamps on the bass drum that are hardware 1073 preamps right here, and some very nice 33 series here. And then we also have a 1073 preamp unison pre-emulation on the lead vocal and on the background vocals. And we have a 610 unison pre-emulation on the 77DX that's on the horns.
Correct.
And then you using these 4 lines that are DIs that are being amplified by the Apollo pre's. Do you remember what
Also,
you used?
yeah, 1073s as well.
Also 1073s.
Yeah.
So we have here a hybrid of hardware 1073s and unison 1073s working together in the Apollo extended system with Pro Tools to create one big sound. Okay, so the rest of the setup, once Joel hits, do you have any processing besides pre's before you hit the converters on the Apollo 16?
Well, pre-EQs.
Yeah, some EQs.
And then on one of the room mics, the one that was way up high, there's an 1176.
Made by Universal Audio. It's a good company.
Yeah.
Nice people,
Oddly
too.
enough.
Yeah, nice people, too.
And that's sort of like the all button-in
Yep.
trick thing on that one.
So it goes...
So yeah, so it does that a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's this 33609 here that a friend of mine built for me that's really quite nice on those two Bova Ball microphones. They're not doing, this is not doing a ton on that, but it's just kind of getting through, getting squeezed a little bit.
Okay, so that's pretty
squeezing
minimal.
balls a little bit on the way in.
Okay, fantastic.
I said it.
You didn't say it loud. Okay, so...
But I said it twice.
You want to say it again?
No, I'm
okay. So then the third. So now we're in Pro Tools. Okay, and we've gone through the outboard pre's, the Apollo pre's, the Apollo converters. We're now in Pro Tools, using Pro Tools as your tape machine essentially, and then it's coming out of Pro Tools through the two Apollo 16 converters. So that's 32 channels, and that hits your SSL board. And your SSL board is basically your monitoring / real-time mixing board.
In this case, real-time mixing, yeah.
Okay. So
Because I'm staying in mix mode so that we keep a running mix during this particular session in particular.
so that these guys can actually hear something manageable. Okay. And you...
Which I do anyway. I mean, I only have enough time to make things sound great in here as it takes the drummer to get from the stool. When his butt comes off the stool and he comes around the corner like we just walked into the control room, it has to be inspiring when they get in front of the speakers. That's it. So that's probably 10 to 12 seconds after the take ends. It has to sound like something.
Yep. And so those 32 channels are, well, you're probably not using 32 considering the number of mics.
We're inside of 24.
Inside of 24. So these inside of 24 channels show up one track per fader on the SSL. You're using some of the SSL EQs and compression because I see some VU meters dancing there. Okay, and that is then going to another, this is the slightly unusual part of your rig. You're actually printing to a different rig using an Apollo 8 as your interface and a separate laptop, which if you want, it's that contraption over there. And that is because, why would you not print to the same session?
Well, first of all, it's synced to my multi-track machine. And so whenever I hit play on this one, that one starts rolling as well. So when I'm in mix mode, I'm printing right in the same place in the timeline as the multi-track. So they stay in sync. But that's via the IAC bus. So we're going across Ethernet to sync these two things, MIDI over IAC. But it isolates me from sample rate constraints. So when I'm working more as a mix engineer and I'm delivered something that's 44.1 sample rate, like whatever, 88.2, even if it's higher or lower than I normally work, which is 48 on the multi-track side, then I still capture at 96K on
because
the two-track side.
we have to deliver a 96K these days.
Yeah. I mean, and I like the way that sounds, and I like capturing the sound of all of the work that happens over here and in the box. Over there at 96K.
Okay, so that's the extent of the rig, and then you're monitoring, for all intents and purposes, you're monitoring after your print chain.
While mixing, correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll flip back and forth, just like you would on a two-track machine. That takes the place, this takes the place of a multi-track tape machine, that takes the place of a two-track tape machine. It's
What a
exactly
concept.
that. I know.
Fantastic.
I know,
All right.
I figured it out myself.
Oh, amazing. So I hope this clarifies and makes the vision of what's going on a little more tangible. I have a couple questions before we start recording. Questions from Kali Betsp. Do you have a go-to vocal chain? What are you using here for the vocal?
I'm using very specifically a gold U87 into unison in this case.
Okay. What's special about the gold?
It's gold.
Oh, well then, it's great.
That's it. It's an 87, but it's gold.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean?
Okay, good. That's great. But when we're not in Hollywood show mode with cameras running, what's your go-to vocal chain?
It's different for every singer. I mean, I have a couple things that I start with each time, and you know, male and female makes a big difference to me in general in life.
Yes.
And
Yeah, me too.
And also, you know, sort of the style of music and things like that. I mean, there's again, it's choosing something with that vision in mind of where it's supposed to sit in the mix later.
Okay.
That dictates rather than, you know, I start with an 87. I mean, that's the 87 is the 57 of 87s.
Yes. I know exactly what you mean. So, but I think
Who's with me, fellas?
yes, I think it's safe to say that it's very overwhelming. I don't know if you remember the very beginning of when you started to do this. Maybe you had the chance of being the assistant of someone who knew what they were doing. That
No.
was no, well, me neither.
I wouldn't say they knew what they were doing.
Oh,
that's for sure.
you were the assistant of someone.
I assisted for about a week.
Okay. Did you get fired too?
No,
I got
no,
fired.
no,
Oh yeah.
no.
The problem is at the beginning when you don't have the information there, especially these days now with the explosion of home studios and the explosion of the availability of an amazing amount of gear and microphones, people are overwhelmed because they're told every day that they need this to be able to do that. It's like if you don't have the bass drum microphone,
Right, yeah.
then you can't do a bass. If you don't have the vocal chain, you can't record a vocal. But that's not really how it works.
No, well, I mean, also working by yourself, we've seen people lean more on historical precedent than collaboration. So it's like everybody's looking to the past because we have to look at recording history, to say, oh, well, these guys did it with this microphone. I need that microphone if I'm going to sound like that band.
Yep.
And it's simply not true. You see
Nope.
people getting results with all kinds of equipment in all kinds of positions.
And that is very important. It takes. Let's just say that everybody will get more results out of renting 2 microphones for a day and listening to the difference between the two than spending 18 hours online trying to figure out
Definitely.
which one to buy.
Definitely.
And that's the big lesson. So speaking of which, to go to the opposite of what we just said, you ready? Let me wake this up in case he's still using the diagram. If you had a question from somebody named 4K, I wonder what that refers to. Okay. If you had to choose only one microphone to work with for the rest of your life, which one? And of
Wow.
course, why?
Probably my 47. And because I've left that on the stand and just kind of swung it around the room for so many years, I've recorded everything there is to record with that microphone. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes I just EQ the crap out of it and make it work, you know?
And that's the other thing, is that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's not
no.
because it's a $15,000
No.
47 that it's going to be great on everything.
But if I did have to have it, then it would be good to know that I could sell it if it stopped, like, you know,
There
if
you
I
go.
needed the money.
That's a
You know what
different
I mean?
consideration.
It's
Daryl.
like money in the bank. If I would just like walk away with that
Yes.
and know that I'd still get a sandwich in 5 years or
There
something.
you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because in 5 years a sandwich will probably be 15 grand at this
Here,
rate of inflation.
in this
for
neighborhood,
sure.
in this neighborhood for sure.
That's a guarantee. All right, so that's brilliant. I think that's enough geeking out for now. I think that
I mean, I've been doing it for a lifetime, so you tell me.
I'm going to do it after this. I think we should make some music. The band magically appeared. Is that
Right on.
amazing? And then LB's here. And then we have our vocalists here too. So I think the next step is to just shut up and make some music. Just one more geeky thing.
Yeah.
You have the vocalists on their condenser microphones in the control room and your
do.
speakers running. That's against the rules. You can't do that, Joe.
Right.
No, can't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of
But it's
weird
going to be
sort
bleed.
of-
There's going to be bleed.
There's a lot of weird sort of traditionally held ideas about how you make a record that
Yeah.
are so funny to me
Yes,
always.
it's
you know?
hysterical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, how are you going to deal with the bleed? Well, it's not
I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Okay.
And I get to watch all 3 of them like rock out.
Yeah.
And while this band who's totally killing it,
Yeah.
they watch them killing it.
Uh-huh.
And then what's gonna happen is when I hit play afterwards, I'm gonna remember that fun instead of remembering the like 5 hours where I locked LB in a closet with like an isolation thing on in the dark with no air conditioning and no fun. You know what I'm
You
saying?
better
Like, we're gonna
behave,
remember that
otherwise
it's
that's what's
fun.
happening next.
No, I don't. I've never seen a lack of humanity make a better record ever in all the years, and it's been like 25 of them doing this. You know.
Say no more. All right. So
You
this
guys
is the
ready?
part where we make music.
I sure am. I'm going to use Pro Tools instead of Preview.
Thank you, boss.
Where is that?
Not the best recorder.
Check.
1, 2, rocking on out. Check right.
All right. You guys good to go? All right. Thanks, Chewbacca. All right, stand by. One more time. All right, here we go.
I heard him say I couldn't cut it in my album sucks, cause I was too experimental, played around too much, just because I wasn't doing all the average stuff. But my people always knew that I was bound to bust, so when they see me on the streets, give me pounds and hugs, cause I stuck to my guns, I'm about to funk. Can't help myself, that's the sound of love. Then one by one I tore down the club, so when I stepped on stage the whole house erupted. Slapped so hard I should've won the Stanley Cup. See, I like to drink a little, talk loud and stuff, because I'm outspoken, that's just the town I'm from. God help a pair of jeans I ain't counted up. These gators sent me back a couple $1,000, but you know, that's what it is, baby, that's what's up. Hey!
Don't change the way you do things.
Tell them.
Don't change the way you do it.
Hey!
Don't change your walk. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are.
Tell them again.
Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you
But I always lacked the wet, but just took a little bit to get them off the ground. Along the way, cats offered me an ounce of help. I could have been all there talking pounds enough. Now 10-year bid over $1,000. Shit, that's less than McDonald's, bruh. If you stretch that out, it don't amount to much. And that's just math wrong, baby, add it up. Ain't bad for a guy to flunk algebra, but ain't nothing wrong with my numbers down, you duck. Cause I always knew how I felt about myself. I learned early on this ain't for powder puff. That's the thing, man. You got talent, son. You gon' always have haters that doubt you, bruh. So on you to show damn they was out to touch. And if they should've messed with you, they was out to lunch. Hey!
Don't change the way you do things. Don't change the way you do it.
Don't do it.
Don't change your walk. Don't change the way you talk.
Tell them.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are. Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you act.
Hey! Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from the Bay Area, California, transmitting live from Studio G. Shout out to Universal Audio in the building. You know the voice on site, Lyrics Boy.
Don't change the way you do things.
Hey!
Don't change the way you do it.
Tell them again.
Don't change your walk. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are, baby.
Hey!
Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak.
Tell them.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it to what you hate.
Let's go. Yes, indeed. Studio G, Brooklyn, New York. Lyrics Boy, Joe Hamilton. Universal Audio. Joyo Velarde. One more time, hit me. Hey. Y'all ready? Get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the floor on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came before? Get off the wall, on the counter floor. Come on, 2, 3. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come, ain't that what y'all came before? Get off the wall, on the counter floor. Come on, 2, 3. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came before? Get off the wall, on the counter floor. Come on, 2, 3.
Yeah, that was so the one. That was totally the one. Nice.
Excellent.
Cool.
Or as we say professionally, bananas.
Yeah, man.
Yes, that rocked. I like the lyrics at the end there. It's like I like those foreign languages.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Deux, trois, un, deux,
Yeah,
trois.
yeah.
That's right.
He was translating it for me.
yeah.
In real time.
Yeah.
In real time.
Yeah, that's how we do.
Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay, great. So, so even though this is for cameras, we're also making a record.
Yes.
What did you think of this take?
It's great. That's the one.
Okay, the one.
Definitely.
I've been looking for the one.
That had the energy.
Okay, yes, it sure
Definitely.
did. So what's your next step here? What are you gonna
Well,
do?
here's what we're going to do. The plan is that we're going to double the girl's vocal here. So we're going to hear playback. In here, we're going to do it right in place.
Okay.
And we're going to get the main vocal mic just sort of is going to disappear and go out into the live room.
So what's
there.
the purpose of bringing the vocal mic in the live room then?
Well, because we're going to now isolate LB for either doubling or another shot at the main vocal, but sort of without the monitors blazing.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
You know?
Good.
So while you move the microphone, you lovely ladies are gonna do it again.
Yep.
All right.
All right, I just killed his comment.
Cool. All right, so I just need 2 more tracks here.
So a couple more tracks are being created in Pro Tools.
So just doubling the entire thing.
Yeah, exactly. Everywhere that you just sang, just do it again. And the claps.
Yes.
So you're doing the claps live.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a
Definitely.
sample.
Well, sometimes it is, and that's fun too. All right. You guys ready? We're just going to do it while everybody else is kind of scuffling around, doing the limbo out of the live room or whatever, the conga line, yeah, the
Conga
polka.
line. There's no conga
Okay.
line. I'm disappointed.
I know, me too. I'm sort of sad, but I'm imagining it. Okay, here we go.
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change the way you are, baby.
Tell them.
Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change it to what you hate, baby.
Heard him say I wouldn't amount to much. I heard him say I couldn't cut it in my album sucks, cause I was too experimental, played around too much. Just because I wasn't doing all the average stuff. But my people always knew that I was bound to bust. So when they see me on the streets, give me pounds and hugs. Cause I stuck to my guns, I'm about to funk. Can't help myself, that's the sound of love. Then one by one I tore down the club. So when I stepped on stage, the whole house erupted. Slapped so hard I should've won the Stanley Cup. See, I like to drink a little, talk loud and stuff. Because I'm outspoken, that's just the town I'm from. God help a pair of jeans I ain't counted up. These gators sent me back a couple $1,000 bucks. But you know, that's what it is, baby, that's what's up. Hey!
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things.
Tell them.
Don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby.
Hey.
Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk.
Oh.
Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change the way you are,
Tell them
baby.
again.
Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change it to what you hate, baby.
Everything but I always lack the wealth. It just took a little bit to get them off the ground. I'm on the way, hands off of me and out for help. I could have been on there talking pounds and up. Now 10-year bid up over $1,000. Shit, that's less than McDonald's, bruh. If you stretch that out, it don't amount to much. And that's just math gone, baby, add it up. Ain't bad for I got the blunt down to rough. But ain't nothing wrong with my numbers down, you duck. Cause I always knew how I felt about myself. I learned early on, this ain't for power to puff. That's the thing, man. You got talent, son. You gon' always have haters that doubt you, bruh. So on you to show damn niggas out to touch. And then they should've messed with you, take us out to lunch. Hey!
Don't change, don't change, don't change the
California, transmitting live from Studio G. Shout out to Universal Audio in the building. You know the voice on site. Lyrics for.
Don't change the way you do things.
Hey,
Don't change the way you do it.
tell them again.
Don't change the way. Don't change the way you talk.
Oh,
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are, baby.
hey,
Don't change your face. Don't change the way you sweat.
tell them.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it to what you ain't.
Let's go. Yes, indeed. Studio G, Brooklyn, New York. Lyrics for Joe Hamilton. Universal Audio. Joyo Velarde. One more time, hit me. Hey. Y'all ready? Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall, on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall, on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall, on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall, on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12.
Totally great. Totally great.
Great. So for those of you who were confused about why these lovely ladies who nailed it the first time had to do it again, it's because they were doubling it to make it sound bigger, rounder, and more full, and they did it in one pass, which is unusually professional and rocking.
Backwards.
Thank you very much.
Casey, right?
Y a pas de quoi. Okay, and so while those guys talk here about stuff, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next. I think you guys are off the hook, right? They're
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Joe, what's your next step in building this track?
I'm gonna listen to what we got here for a second.
Listening.
Yeah, I know it's a rare luxury.
Wow, dude.
Yep. And then we're gonna figure out. I think maybe what we could do is I'll listen while LB's out there. We could consolidate that into. We could save some time because he's gonna double his vocal.
Okay.
And since now the fact is he's isolated out in the live room now, means I can listen while he's tracking.
Great.
So we should grab him, please. Cool, thank you. I need one of the assistants to kill all the open headphones that are out there still, though, so we're not just printing click into
Aha.
LB's double, you know?
Yep. One often overlooked problem.
Yeah, till the second take.
Yes. So since we have a nanosecond here, a question from Dan from Gerstets. With small budgets, which are most budgets,
A lot.
how do you balance quality versus efficiency? Do you have to cut corners?
Check.
How do you make a small budget still work?
1 second. I mean, honestly, the same way that we're doing it right now. We maximize time. I just was like, okay, I need to listen for a second, but instead we're going to get the primary artist in there to double. You know, so time management, it's all the little things that people don't think about. I mean, how long are you really going to EQ the inside kick drum for? You know, like get off of the solo, start working in context, and amazingly it starts to sound like a song much quicker than you would imagine. I think much quicker than people think.
Yep.
You know, even when you're stacking things up and not just doing it with a live band, it's like you create a context and that informs the next decision. And I think you find yourself in a place where there's a song happening much quicker. Also keep a running mix. Even when I move song to song, I sort of you know, just push faders around. When we're in basics, it's still kind of basically the same track layout and everything from song to song. Because since I work on a console, it doesn't move with the song. If I opened up song 2 now, it's coming through this set of circumstances here.
So your fader moves happen on the console, not in
Fader
Pro
moves
Tools.
happen on the console and in Pro Tools. They're definitely, it's both. Because I was explaining to Gannon before that I'm sensitive to the idea of amplitude changes without a timbre change. I grew up playing sort of upright bass, and I started on viola. I mean, when I played louder, the sound of it changed dramatically. And so I like the sound of, since I integrate both hardware and software, I'll have something like a precision de-esser on the vocal, but when I hear it sort of drain out of the compression that's maybe happening on an outboard piece of gear, I like that it then sort of feels like there's air around it again. It feels unfettered in the sort of breakdown verse or something. I like that timbre change. So in that case, I would make the move in Pro Tools. It's like a magic tape machine that knows when to get quiet. You know? Or if I want to hold the tone that I've achieved through compression and tone shaping in that way, but I want it to sort of move around, you know, maybe I want it to move up a little bit in the chorus and come down a bit in the bridge, but not quite back to verse level. At that point, I'll do it post-processing, if you think of it that way. Because I usually don't have anything patched post-fader, except for my parallel stuff that we'll talk about later.
In a second. Okay, great. So is everybody ready?
Yeah. LB, you good for just doing a double here? He doesn't have his talkback up, or that station's not plugged in.
Check, check, check.
Hi, we're going to talk to you in a minute. It's me, Joel. What happened? We were cool like a minute ago. Now you hearing me?
Check, I hear you.
Cool, right on.
Yep,
All right, so let's just do straight up. We'll do a double.
let's do it.
All right, so here we go from the top. We're going to run it as a full live pass again.
Cool.
Here we go. You want to hear your old one, or you just want to do it again?
Actually, I would like to hear it.
Yeah, cool. It's
Yeah,
in there. It's in there.
thanks.
Just and it's on the same send, just turned down just a little bit. You know.
Okay.
So that means it's on the same monitor path because it's coming out the same channel. I'm just stacking them on top of each other out the same physical channel
So
in this case.
Yeah, your
In
cue
this
system. Yeah, your cue system is post Pro Tools. So you're actually
Correct.
going through the Apollos. There, you
Yep.
are 32 samples of buffer.
Yep.
And you're patching from the SSL into your cue box.
Yep. So my tape return goes straight to his headphone box for his individual send. So what he's listening to is the mix that we're listening to in here,
Yep.
and it's a more me situation. So if he needs more of himself, he's got a knob to turn that up.
Cool.
All right, here we go. We don't need the click.
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are, baby.
Down, down.
Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you
Heard him say I wouldn't amount to much. I heard him say I couldn't cut it in my album sucks. Cause I was too experimental, played around too much. Just because I wasn't doing all the average stuff. And my people always knew that I was bound to bust. So when they see me on the streets, give me pounds and hunt. Cause I stuck to my guns, I'm about to funk. Can't help myself, that's the sound of love. Then one by one I tore down the club. So when I stepped on stage, the whole house was rock. Slapped so hard I should've won the Stanley Cup. See, I like to drink a little, talk loud and stuff. Because I'm outspoken, that's just the town I'm from. Got hella pair of jeans, I ain't counted up. And these gators sent me back a couple $1,000. But you know, that's what it is, baby, that's what's up. Hey!
don't change the way you do things.
Tell them.
Don't change the way you do it, baby.
Hey.
Don't change your walk.
Say what?
Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are.
Tell them again.
Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it in what you ain't,
Had
baby.
big dreams, but I always lacked the wealth. It just took a little bit to get them off the ground. Along the way, cats offered me an ounce of help. I could have been all in, talking pounds enough. Now 10-year bid over $1,000. Shit, that's less than McDonald's, bruh. If you stretch that out, it don't amount to much. And that's just math. Go on, baby, add it up. Hey, man, for a cat to flunk algebra. But ain't not wrong with my numbers down, you duck. Cause I always knew how I felt about myself. I learned early on this ain't for powder puff. That's the thing, man. You got talent, son. You gon' always have haters that doubt you, bro. It's on you to show them they was out to touch. And they should've messed with you. They was out to lunch. Hey!
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are, baby. Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it to what you ain't, baby.
Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from the Bay Area, California, transmitting live from Studio G, Brooklyn. Shout out to Universal Audio in the building. You know the voice on site, Lyrics
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are, baby. Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it to what you ain't, baby.
Yes, indeed. Studio G, Brooklyn, New York. Oh, Lyrics Born, Joe Hamilton, you know. Universal Audio. Let's go, Royal Melody. One more time, hit me. Hey. Oh, that's funky. Hey. Y'all ready? Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came in for? Get off the wall, on the count of four. Come on, 2, 3. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came in for? Get off the wall, on the count of four. Come on, 2, 3. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came in for? Get off the wall, on the count of four. Come on, 2, 3. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came in for? Get off the wall, on the count of four. Come on, 2, 3.
Yeah, man. Come in and check this out.
Very nice. I think this would be a good time to actually credit the musicians.
Yeah.
So we have, and I don't have everybody's name memorized, so I have a cheat sheet here. So the artist is Lyric Born. He's coming in. On drums, we had Max McVitie. On guitar, Wes Mingus. On bass, Derek
Nevergelt.
Nivegelt.
Yep.
On keys, Boram Lee. On baritone sax, Martin Perna. Tenor sax, Morgan Price. Trumpet, Jordan McLean.
McLean, yeah.
And then on background vocals, Joyo Velarde and Casey Murray.
Casey Marie, yeah.
Casey Murray. There's so much French influence in this. I can barely contain it.
Yeah.
All right, great. So those were the musicians who nailed it in one take.
Yeah.
That was bananas.
You nailed it.
That was
Yeah,
great.
man.
That was great.
killer.
Groovy track. So
There is one snare I'm going to fix right now.
he's going to fix the snare.
One snare.
There's one
Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are, baby. Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it to what you ain't, baby.
Things but I always lacked the wealth. It just took a little bit to get them off the ground. Along the way, cats offered me an ounce of help. I could have been all in. I tore down the club, so when I stepped on stage, the whole house erupted. Slapped so hard, I should have won the Stanley Cup. See, I like to drink a little, talk loud and stuff, because I'm outspoken, that's just the town I'm from. God hell, a pair of jeans I ain't counted up, and these gators set me back a couple $1,000. You know, that's what it is, baby, that's what's up. Hey!
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things.
Town now.
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are,
Town now
baby.
again.
Don't change your face, don't change
right, Joe. So you found the offensive snare.
Yes.
What happened?
I don't know. It just kind of hit the rim a little bit, and I'm only just gonna fix it in the top snare. It's not too offensive.
Don't change the way you
I'm just kind of dropping it in by hand.
The producer's ear.
Yes. What? Come on, man. Gannon's laptop is what's going on.
It's a new machine.
Yeah.
This is all being done on a laptop, people.
And not Joel's.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that laptop has seen some travel.
don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it in what you ain't.
Okay, good enough
Awesome.
for the moment.
Good enough for jazz.
Yes.
All right. So now you've done the extensive post-production editing part of
Yeah,
our program.
yeah.
Great. So what's next?
Well, I'm pretty much ready to get into some mixing. I was maybe going to have some people do some claps on the entire track.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like, because we could use it all the way down. I really liked it, like where we had Casey jumping in on the claps at the end. I
Right.
think it'll help the snare.
Okay.
In the original track, there's sort of like an almost more bounce to the ounce, zap sounding snare situation happening that I
Right.
love. So I'd love to get some almost like gritty, distorted claps happening.
Okay. So how are you going to do that?
Just on the vocal mic,
Okay.
and we're gonna put that out 16.
So we need to find
Yeah, please.
New track, 16.
New tracks, and we need to get some
people who know
some
2 from
musicians
4.
in here. Yeah.
It's important. Yeah.
That's all right. We only need like 3 people anyway. If you could just drag over like Nievergelt's station into the middle right there and LB's station, that's enough. We have 4 people. So if you could put 2 headphones in each and just make it mix and talk back. And have somebody grab a tambourine. 4 people.
4 people with some time skills.
Yeah. Ish. It's okay
All right,
if
so
it's okay if the crowd's a little drunk.
That's right. so you're basically going to add an overdub while you mix.
Yeah, I
Next
mean,
pass
every one of these passes
is
is
a
going to
mix.
be a mix pass, you know.
And that's what I wanted to describe to these guys because they can't hear while music is playing, right? Otherwise it would be chaos. But
Right.
basically what Joe was doing, he was looking for his,
Was complaining.
yeah. That's something that us French people know how to do very well. But Joe has an honorary member. So Joe was looking for his broken snare, but at the same time he was, and while LB was recording his doubles, Joe was actually tuning, EQing, tuning up the balance, EQing stuff, using a little bit of sands into reverbs. Basically you were mixing as you go.
Yeah, and poking at it a little bit, meaning like moves that I don't think are, you know, may or may not be in the final mix right now, kind of going, so maybe if it's real roomy, like more drum room lights at the end, that gets more exciting, or, you know, whatever strikes me while there's a take going on.
Trying stuff.
Trying stuff out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so when you said we're going to get into mixing, what does that
So
mean?
4 people turned into like 14 now, by the way.
Well,
I
a
just wanna
party's a
point
party.
that
What you gonna do?
Yeah.
They had a lot of coffee. So you say, well, right now we're going to do an overdub, but while the overdub happens, you're going to keep mixing.
Yeah.
And you said we're going to get into mixing. What is there a different headspace, or what are you doing that's different now than you were doing when LB was tracking his double?
Well, I mean, number one, I'm not watching any meters on input. You know, I'm not hoping for someone to hit their mark
Right.
anymore, so I can kind of go back to just, it comes to me on my terms now. You know what I'm saying? Like when I hit play, it's for me. I can keep going back to whatever I want to concentrate on at any given moment. And you know, I mean, as you know, you sort of go into the micro and keep pulling back out to the macro over and over again.
Yep.
So on some of these passes, I'll just have fun because everybody's going to be dancing and clapping in here, and see about the overall vibe. It's an abused term, but it's an easy way to sum it up. The overall feel of what's going on versus the individual elements. I'm not thinking, is there too much 4K on the RE11 track while they're doing the claps.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
So the claps you're using, the microphone, the old gold, solid gold
Yeah.
87
Yes.
that you were using on LB, and that's going to, and somebody grabbed the tambourine, so it's about to get dangerous.
Yeah.
And then you, you're going to the Apollo 8P and you're using the 1073 Unison Pre.
Yeah, we're using the same vocal chain, like exactly. I mean, this is how I would normally do it. I really will swing like the same mic around the room for all, for lots of the overdubs.
What's the settings on the Unison Pre you have there? What are you using?
Just a high pass, really.
Okay.
Or not even, it's not even EQ in,
Okay.
so it's really just flat.
Just the gain to
yeah,
emulate the 1073.
just the gain, yeah, exactly.
All right, well, let's listen to that.
Yeah. Hi. Everybody with headphones anyway, hi. You know what? You could pull Wes's headphone station over too so that Jordan can have headphones. There's one, that should be one right behind him. Somebody want to tell him that? Because he can't hear me tell him that until he has headphones. Therein lies the rub.
Yep. That's why I've been begging my tech to put a speaker talkback in my rooms.
Yeah. We
Somehow
actually
it's-
have it. We have a little SLS. We just don't have it hooked up.
Exactly. I have the speaker, but I don't know
yeah.
what I have to do to get him to
Yeah.
connect it.
Oh no, I mean we have it happening, but I just don't have it normal. It's a patch. Everybody ready? Yeah, all right. Wow, convincing. And this is just the whole track, tambourine and claps. All right? Here we go.
Don't change the way you do things. Don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change.
Check it out. Tambourine needs to go back like 7 feet in the room.
Like in the ISO.
Like almost in the ISO. That's like the loudest tambourine in the universe. I don't know why that thing is like raging.
Max is back there shaking.
Wow.
There's a train to Manhattan coming soon.
Wow.
We'll hear
All right,
you from
cool.
there.
This is gonna be better. Here we go from the top. And Max, you can just start right when you hear the clicks that you're up to the same tempo as the track by the time the beat drops. Here we go. Oh, or he doesn't have click in. Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Don't change the way you do things. Don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are, baby. Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change what you ate, baby.
Heard them say I wouldn't amount to much. I heard them say I couldn't cut it in my album sucks. Cause I was too experimental, played around too much. Just because I wasn't doing all the average stuff. And my people always knew that I was bound to bust. So when they see me on the streets, give me pounds and hump. Cause I stuck to my guns, I'm about to funk. Can't help myself, that's the sound of love. Then one by one I tore down the club. So when I stepped on stage, the whole house was up. Sat so hard I should've won the Stanley Cup. See, I like to drink a little, talk loud and stuff. Because I'm outspoken, that's just the town I'm from. God help a pair of jeans, I ain't counted up. And these gators set me back a couple $1,000. But you know, that's what it is, baby, that's what's up. Hey!
Don't change the way you do things.
Town now.
Don't change the way you do it, baby.
Hey.
Don't change your walk. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are.
Town now again.
Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you ate,
Had big brains, but I always lacked the wealth. It just took a little bit to get them off the ground. Along the way, cats offer me an ounce of help. I could have been all in, talking pounds and up. Now 10 years, been over $1,000. Shit, that's less than McDonald's, bruh. If you stretch that out, it don't amount to much. And that's just math gone, baby, add it up. Ain't bad for a guy that flunked algebra. But ain't nothing wrong with my numbers down, you duck. Cause I always knew how I felt about myself. I learned early on, this ain't for powder puff. That's the thing, man, you got talent, son. You gon' always have haters that doubt you, right? It's on you to show them they was out to touch. And if they should've messed with you, they was out to lunch. Hey!
Don't change the way you do things. Don't change
Okay, no problem. Amazing, thank you. We'll call you.
All right. So while the claps were being recorded, and the reverb is coming on. Obviously, if we're not live, you just said you would probably do another track.
Yeah, I would do one more clap track probably.
Okay. For stereo purposes or for thickness purposes?
No, thickness, because the crowd vibe is feeling good in this. It's a more live version than what I heard, like from the album version, you know. So, in general, not just because of live instruments. I mean, it's kind of just more like raging.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's a little more unhinged and fun. I would start to head. I'm gonna start heading towards unhinged as the goal. You know, like fun. I want to feel like everybody's jumping up and down in the front row at the festival rather than like thinking in headphones when I listen to this.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So while this was happening, you did some moves. By the way,
did.
maybe everybody should know that these are sends to your reverbs.
These are sends. In this case, this is a bus going to a Dimension D.
Dimension D. Can you explain what the
Specifically.
Dimension D is?
It's like a stereo chorus. It's a way to take the mono Juno track that I took in mono and widen it out. Give it the illusion of a stereo thing.
Okay.
In sort of a Miami Vice way.
There's a
It's
rockin'.
the sound of Miami Vice.
Well then, does it come with like the jacket with
Yes.
the things? Okay.
Yes. We have it
because
for
I
you.
already have I have this part.
Yeah.
There's a
look.
there's a fabulous Dimension D plugin in the UAD.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It is wonderful.
Yep.
So that's what that is. There's how do you get that reverb on the snare? I think that people are going to ask themselves that.
That's the M7.
Okay. That's a
the
Bricasti reverb.
and that is on Send 3. Send 4 is a BX10.
The BX10 is an old spring reverb by
Yep.
AKG.
Yep, and the Aux 2 right now is on a delay.
Okay.
I'm just using a
And
delay.
so you put the Bricasti on the claps, correct?
Yeah. That's sort of the primary space verb that I'm using in this particular case.
Okay,
You know,
great.
so it's on the snare. It starts to become the illusion of where we recorded it is coming from the Bricasti.
Okay. So while this was going on, you inserted an LA2 on something.
I did on the main vocal.
Okay.
And did we wind up with the other thing on the tape out? So that's labeled too. So this wound up on the main vocal as well on the tape out.
Okay. That's a Mag EQ for which there is a
It's
plugin
the
to?
Magnum
Comp. That's
yeah.
the comp.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm starting to layer up kind of a vocal chain.
So that's on the main vocal too?
It is.
And
But on
this-
the tape out, and then that's on the insert. And so when I EQ the vocal, that's going to change.
Okay.
This is not. It's just
Okay.
entering the console this way.
Okay. So I think I need to explain that.
Please do.
So imagine the track coming out of Pro Tools and coming out of the Apollo 16 converter being fed into this Mag compressor. And that's the first layer of compression. Coming out of this Mag compressor is going to go into the input of the channel on the console. Are you using any EQ on the console?
Yes.
Then it's getting EQ'd on the console. All right, so you have a kind of a pre-compression happening in between the converter and the input of the console. Everybody still with me? Okay. Then, are you using the SSL compressor too?
Yes. The channel one.
You're using the SSL channel compressor on this.
And the gate.
And the gate.
Expander, yeah.
What for?
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of bleed in the vocal, and it kind of just cleans up in between statements.
Fair enough. And then on the insert point of the console, which is post EQ.
It's post EQ, correct. In this
Yeah.
case, I can assign it to be pre, but in this case, it's post
post.
EQ.
You have this.
Yep, the LA2.
So now on the vocal chain, you have not one, not two, but three compressors.
And we'll wind up with one in the box and probably a de-esser.
Why so many compressors? Why not just do the job with one compressor?
Well, because the sound of a lot of things doing a little is preferable to me. It's like shellac or varnish, where you can't just dump the whole bucket on the table and go, wow, it's going to be really shiny now. It's like I have to get this in layers.
Okay.
You know, so just tiny, tiny layers each time. You'll notice that no single device is going to be doing a lot. It's just that each one kind of hears the source differently, responds to different things, and kind of gets it out to a shine that I'm looking for.
Okay, so it's a multi-level compression with not a lot of compression at every level.
Exactly.
So I have a question here from Gersluts, from somebody named Metro Iceberg. And what's the easiest way for you to get vocals to sit properly in the mix?
We sort of just halfway answered that, but coupled
other
with
half.
I mean, a lot of it has to do with now. It has to do with the inserts that I just got into. Excuse me, because the way that LA2A is going to respond to the EQ, it becomes now a dynamic process rather than a static EQ move. Meaning, I'm going to feel that I can drive the low end of LB's voice and get it to sort of chest up into the speakers, but that's now going to react more to that, and I'll see if I like that tilt, kind of engaging the compressor more, or if I'm going to high pass it and drain out the low mids, and then that compressor starts doing less. You know, so we can now kind of shape into a limiter at this point, and that I find that helps give me a way to create a shape that sits in the middle of the mix correctly.
And to be clear, Joel was not talking about automating EQs. He's talking about while he's looking for the sound, hearing
correct.
a limiter push back against his move helps him do a better informed move for the vocal to sit better in the mix. So this is something that you developed over time, obviously.
It is. Well, I started to recognize that if I blast 1K on the vocal and the LA2 and a compressor is responding to that, it's a lot like turning down the low and the high end, but the level kind of stays the same if you're limiting the heck out of it.
Yep.
And so it turns into an EQ move that then when things get quiet, you just hear that static EQ move. So again, we're hearing frequencies affected over in the time domain. So it kind of animates that take a little bit. You can make it sound kind of, like it's straining the system. It's hitting the wires harder. When we first started doing this, I said to LB, like, man, just stay right up on the mic, like in that block party way. Like, have you ever been standing in Brooklyn on like a hot afternoon in the summer and somebody's just eating a 57, because the only way to make it like get up over the track, you know what I mean? And
it's
so they're like
98%.
cupping it and eating it and just barking through like cheap speakers on 11. And it's like, but that carries a particular idiom for me. You know what I mean? Like the spirit of that is something that I want to come out of the speakers and affect other people,
Yep.
across
So-
time and space.
Yes, and for eternity and beyond.
Exactly.
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's important.
Infinity.
Infinity and Beyond B.
Yeah.
So it's important for everybody to understand that this is an aesthetic choice, and that it comes, as Joel just explained, from experience and from a yearning for a sound that exists. If you start, actually this one is made by UA too, like 98% of the gear made these days. So UA makes this box. It doesn't mean that you'll have the exact same results as Joel. You have to form your idea of what you want to come out of the speakers before you start twiddling knobs. Now you know how Joel does it, so maybe it'd be a good idea for you to try that. You can have
With what you have.
with what you have.
Yeah.
With the Apollo, LB, you have an Apollo rig, right?
Getting there. Yeah,
Okay.
it's on its way.
Okay,
Sounds right.
so I mean, basically, a lot of the productions that happen these days happen with an Apollo or a Twin and a laptop, right? And with the laptop, with the Apollo Twin, you get the analog collection coming. You get an LA2. You can try this with the plugins that come free with the Apollo,
Completely.
and you can see what works, as opposed to just recreating the steps blindly, which I see a lot of people do. Just try it, fail. Failure is a great teacher.
Definitely. I do. I've been failing my way to the top for years.
Everybody fails their way to where they are. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point. Nobody learns from success.
No.
So I hope this chain makes sense because it is a little more advanced than most people are used to. I had another question for you.
It's a great saying in this case. Calm seas never did a great sailor make. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that has stuck in my brain forever.
The hell does that mean, man?
That means that if it's not chaos, you're
If
screwed.
you're on a sailboat
Yeah.
and everything's good every single day, you're
Yeah.
not even a sailor.
Okay.
If you got to deal with a storm,
Right.
then you're going to be a kick-ass sailor when you make it back alive from that
Yes.
storm. You're going to be a real sailor at that point.
Some boat shoes and rock 'em.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. And you get to wear a cap and the little synchronous. It's cool. So two more
You ever
questions.
seen Love Boat?
Of course.
Case in point.
There
No,
you
I'm
go. So,
I don't even know what that means.
what's the
Stubing, man, stubing.
what's the reverb on the snare?
On the snare is a combination of the kind of early reflection thing is coming from the Bricasti, and then the longer tails are coming from the BX10.
Okay,
In
again,
this case.
this is just 2 reverbs. There's not 5 reverbs. There's 2 reverbs. One shorter one, 0.7 seconds, which is really short. Is it?
It's about the time in the room, which is why I do that. It's kind of a wider version
of your existing
of
room.
my existing room.
And then the BX10 is a spring in a box, and that's you have it on 1.5, 2.5,
Full.
with 3.5.
Just wide
So
open,
the 3.5.
3.5, yeah.
All right. So that's it. That's what's going on. Let's talk about your 2-bus compression. I know you have some plugins on the way in on your capture through the Apollo console on the way into your
But
capture.
no
thing.
compression.
No compression. What
No.
Do you so where do you do your 2-bus compression, if any?
Right now, the 2-mix compressor is just the one that's built into the console. When we move into actual mix mode, we'll wind up through an analog print chain that then moves into the print path.
I think it's time to move. to
Yeah?
yeah. Let's
Okay.
just rock the mix.
All right,
mode.
so check it out. We can listen to the different. No, we can't.
No,
We can't. As a matter of fact.
Because of the internet's system, we have some slightly more restrained.
Thanks a lot, internet.
Yes, la internet.
Thanks a lot for connecting everyone
Yes.
on the globe
Yes.
and not letting me go back and forth between 2 choices.
There are some restrictions to being able to broadcast this madness to you in real
I
time
wish so bad that you had said there are some restrictions to infinity.
and beyond.
Yeah. So let's check it out. We'll start listening through. We'll start doing some processing on the 2-mix.
That would be good.
should
So
say.
you're using the SSL quad right here.
Yep.
The one that everybody uses at one point or another
If they have
in
an
their career,
SSL.
or if they buy it in a rack.
Oh,
or,
yeah, right,
Or
sure.
if they use the plugin.
Sure.
And then
Which I do.
Yes, I do too. And then so now to remind everybody of that phenomenal diagram that I gave you at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Now the output of the console post compression is going to your A2D over there through the Apollo, through some Apollo real-time plugins
Mm-hmm.
into another Pro Tools, which is synchronized to your existing Pro Tools,
Correct.
so that you can capture your final mix at 96K, so that you can deliver up to standards.
Correct.
Okay, so let's
We
rock
also
that.
have it. There is an analog chain headed over to that, though,
Let's talk about that.
because there's an EQ.
Yep.
There's another compressor.
Can't have too
And-
much compression.
Ever.
Yeah.
And there's another EQ. And again, it's a lot of things doing a little.
Okay.
This has been my print path for a long time, and the analog part of the print path has been my print path for a long time. And so I have these just sort of to minimize the run, so I'm not going 50 feet of wire back and forth to the patch bay. These actually just talk to each other. This is
Yeah,
just called
wait.
print path on the patch bay.
Is this made by Camilo Silva
It is.
from Bogota?
Yeah, do you know him?
Yeah.
How do you know him?
He's a sweetheart.
Yeah, yeah.
I love him.
Yeah, he's made me some pre's. He's made a bunch of stuff.
Oh, he's awesome.
He's a great dude.
I made a record there, and he was there
Yeah, I've made a gajillion records in Bogota, weirdly.
in that big studio.
Audio Vision, yeah, and a bunch of others around town.
Oh,
but
that's beautiful.
yeah.
He's
Anyway,
great.
so yeah, he made it, and it's a 4,000. See, this was before the sort of proliferation of a gajillion clones. He made me sort of a higher headroom. I mean, in loose terms, mastering version of a 4,000
With the same VCA
with the
basis.
same VCA, but sort of a higher headroom version
So
of it.
people may understand. You're hitting your 2-bus compression here, and it's doing about 2 to 3 dBs here, if this is calibrated. And then you're hitting another 4,000
Yep.
clone G compressor in series after that, which is also going to do a little bit.
Yep.
And then 2 different EQs that are going to do a little bit. So it's like
Yeah.
strokes. It's mixing impressionism.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, it's like really what's important to me at this point is that I have a bunch of different frequency choices and colors, like the way a particular 160 hertz responds compared to that's why each EQ is different and why we wind up collecting all these different types of things and pulling up 3 different EQ plugins.
You think
Just
it's not
to-
fetishism?
I think it's partially fetishism, but I also think that it's that idiomatic response where we bring the whole history of recording to bear on a particular vocal. And it gives somebody the chills because they recognize that texture without knowing what made it.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep. And fetishism.
Well, yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's kind of the definition, isn't it?
Well, we have knobs.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knobs are key.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's time for me to ask you another question.
Cool.
Oh, this is great. From Klaus Senna. When working alone, do you call on other engineers to get a second opinion?
No.
Next question. How do you keep your ear from scale key? How do you keep your ears or perspective fresh through a long session?
Is skell short for skeleton?
That's another question I don't have the answer
Scale
to.
key.
Scale key. You know, there's a lot of members on Glare, so you probably have to be very creative to come up with your own
It's
username.
true. That's
So
true. Ask me that one more time.
How do you keep your ears fresh and your perspective through a long session?
I mean, your ears sort of, you have to listen to something specific and then back away from listening to something specific and kind of turn it down. I mean, kind of distraction, focus. If we were just mixing right now, it was just me, the artist, and the assistant, we'd sort of talk and I would hear something wrong with it out of the corner of my ear, if you know what I mean, like just by having it quiet.
Yep.
But I'm not like taxing my brain really the entire time that I'm not like scrunching up my face in the dead center, measuring my head to the speakers and trying to hear it, you know. Perspective-wise, I mean, perspective for me comes from context. So coming into this, it's kind of like all the things that I can do to make this work, you know, all the things I bring to the table to make this work. Again, I'm going to go back to the ocean for an analogy that it's like you can't go out and count waves and expect to like get data from that's going to help you get from here to the UK. You know what I mean? So all we can do is keep a perspective on things that we're working with a bunch of human beings that play instruments, you know what I mean? We have a particular expectation on what we want to get out of it. And then lay the groundwork so that anything they do that's great gets captured in a way that's flattering and inspiring in the headphones, you know? I mean, to me, that's like when you keep your eye on course, even if you're dealing with the wave that's right off your bow. I grew up right next to the ocean. By the
I
way.
can tell. So I think I think there was a subtext to that question. It's like, do you get fatigued at the end of the day? Can you mix for 10 hours and you're happy with what you hear in the morning?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I know I'm cooked so I can make a bunch of other decisions like arrangement and edits and things like that because I'm not quite sure about 12K at 8 o'clock. I mean, I also keep my hours very straight. You know, I don't, all I'm making at 11 at night is mistakes. You know what I mean? Like I wind up giving my all for the number of hours that I've determined when we book the session, and then I go home
Yep.
and I chill.
What a concept.
You know?
Yep. Okay. So now we have the two bus chain enabled. And why don't you do what you do?
All right.
When you do what you do.
All right, we're going to do that.
And I'm going to look at the time because we're having fun, but I'm not paying attention to time. Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, okay, cool.
We're on time.
Really?
It's a relative.
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change the way you are, baby.
Tell them.
Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change what you ate, baby.
Heard him say I wouldn't amount to much. I heard him say I couldn't cut it in my album sucked. Cause I was too experimental, played around too much. Just because I wasn't doing all the average stuff. But my people always knew that I was bound to bust. So when they see me on the streets, give me pounds and hunt. Cause I stuck to my guns, I'm about to funk. Can't help myself, that's the sound of love. Then one by one I tore down the club. So when I stepped on stage, a whole house erupted. Slapped so hard I should've won the Stanley Cup. well. It just took a little bit to get them off the ground. Along the way, cats offer me an ounce of help. I could have been on there talking pounds and now 10 years, been up over $1,000.
Can I point something out at this point?
And I had 2 questions.
Yeah, okay.
But point out
Let me point it
first.
out. That at this point in the mix, if I was deep into this mix, I would be looking for things on the print path that are sticking out. So I just found a notch at about 120 that clears up the low end like crazy for me. I'll then turn to the console or back to the plugins or whatever's doing it at any given time and look at my low end and start to see like, okay, is it just because the bass is kind of honking there? Because I do have it boosted there. And I'll see if I can sort of create a bargain, you know, like I'll negotiate between the print and the mix at this point, going back and forth.
So what Joel calls a print means it's 2-bus processing. That's interesting. So you use actually your plugin, in this case, Sony Oxford UAD version, to find out your problem. Then you may or may not solve that. Go back to your source mixing tracks to solve that problem at the source. Or maybe do a halvesies.
Yeah, it's a halvesies usually. It's not that I isolate a problem. It's more that it's a problem if I feel like I need to pull it down 7 dB.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if I can just sort of make a few little moves to get the texture of the mix right, coming out of the speakers, then I'll get happier.
Okay, so which leads me to a fantastic question from Arithmetic with a K at the end.
There's irony there, isn't there?
Absolutely not.
If you like studied that too much and not spelling.
I am absolutely not capable of irony in any way, shape, or form. Everybody knows that. How do you locate the unwanted gunk while subtractive EQing? What you
like
just
I just did.
Yeah.
I hear it first, like, okay, there's kind of a problem in the upper bass or lower mids or whatever, you know, that area. And what am I going to do about it? And then sometimes I'll isolate it on the 2-mix, like during 2-mix processing, and sometimes I'll go back to the channel.
But you hear it. How does that happen?
Experience. I mean, knowing that I can clean it up, knowing that I can take away some of the physicality of the bass in the 100 range in this case, and not have the cones move as much to reproduce the same amount of energy in the bass, you know?
I think the key here is experience. So don't feel horrible if you heard this and you did not hear that there was a problem at 100 hertz, or you heard a problem but you could not quite tell that it was 100 hertz. Again, Joel's been doing this for at least 9 or 10 minutes, and so
This morning.
It started this morning. Not bad for a first gig. And so that's where it comes from. It doesn't come from infused science or from genes. It comes from hours spent on this desk in this position, having had the problem before, remembering the solution.
Yeah, and again, it's with a vision, because if I mean, I could high pass it and it would start sounding more vintage. You know what I mean? And then this quote problem would get cleared up immediately, but I'm trying to retain some of the physicality of the real subs without engaging these cones too much in that particular range. And I just know that 100 is a really thumpy place, you know? Between 1 and 200 is gonna work some speakers.
It sure is.
You know?
That's great. I did not see you do other things. You're using the Sonox, love that one. Using the backs, that's my baby.
Yeah.
I love that one. Help design that.
Yeah, I mean, right now the Bax is just a high pass.
Okay.
You
Yep.
know,
Does that very well.
And the Manly. So,
Okay.
and the Manly is adding a little bit at 150, but with the Q up. So we're starting this shape here.
I see.
Know what I mean?
Yep. So which brings me to a fantastic question from Nikita Arcady, depending on what side of the pond this person is. What is your Desert Island UAD plugin?
It's funny. It might be that Oxford EQ. It might actually be that.
Is that awesome?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an unsung hero for me, because I can just kind of solve a lot of things with that
Yeah,
particular EQ.
It's quite fantastic.
I use it all the time, constantly.
Yeah, I'm physically and unhealthily addicted to the free Pultec EQ that
Yeah.
comes free with the small interfaces. It's just ridiculous.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite EQ?
The Vortex.
You like the
Yeah,
Pultec,
for
right?
sure. Yeah.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing has so much transformer emulation, and it's smooth, and there's no plot to distract you. And it's just, I just love it. I keep using it. The Bax is nice too.
Yeah, the Bax is really good.
Yes.
I mean, those three are probably, you know, the ones that are there. Those are the ones that I cherish on the 2 mix. Not just like it. I mean, that's why it sort of. I tried all of them, and you know what I mean. I tried everything, and then I kept kind of coming back to these
the
same
same, yeah.
3, and the 3 in a row thing again. I mean, the Bax is just so transparent. If you want it to be, it's like I can just kind of get rid of any artifacts that are happening that I've created with the Manly up above it, and
Right.
you know.
Yep.
So-
It's a very, very, very healthy chain. So I'm going to make
That's
a,
the final focus. That's like the real kind of like, you know.
Yep. Yeah, it does put everything into, in focus. That's the best way to say it. So I just want to say that I have here a card. You can see it. That has the name of the giveaway winner on it. Just
Oh,
saying.
wow.
So, yeah. So I personally know the person of who won the. It's no, I won't say it. Because we have another few minutes of enjoying this mixing.
wow.
Yeah, that's that. It's a person. I can say
It's a person.
It's a
That
person. I
narrows
can
it
say
down.
it's a human being. Yeah, it's a human being, and from the name I can't really tell the nationality. So it's a human being who lives on Earth. That's all I say for now. So
Wow,
how
the
you feeling?
intrigue is
Yeah,
deep.
it's tough, huh?
Yeah.
And it's not Donald Trump.
Right.
Yeah, no, he did not enter the giveaway.
I'm gonna stay away from
Okay,
that.
so
Heavily.
so how are we doing on your mix?
I'm working hard. I'm sitting here watching you.
It's a good thing you're not getting interrupted
I'm sitting here watching.
because otherwise it would take forever.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna get back to it.
yeah, I think we should do. I think it would be very interesting for people to see you do a whole pass of the whole song without some annoying French dude interrupting you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do.
And then, I will keep track of some things, and then you just do your thing, and then
Yeah.
I'll ask you questions.
Okay, cool. That's great. That's a plan.
Actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you get the clap to sound so like firecrack? Yeah, because a lot of times when you hear people record claps, it's really
Sounds like
small.
hitting
and
a ham.
It's a tap.
It sounds like just hitting a ham.
Clap.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You know, like you
Like you
mentioned,
dropped the ham on the way to the table and it
Right.
just went. You know? Yeah.
because you mentioned the zap clap, which is huge.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Well, it's driving a reverb to the point of distortion,
Okay.
honestly, and it's also like getting the mid character together on the way in. So it's like there's a lot more in that zap clap
Right.
than. So people are like winding on high end, and it starts to get that like drop the ham sound. and it's like that drives me crazy because you can like swing for the bleachers,
Right.
and it just doesn't sound big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the more I started to recognize like where the mids were at in those claps, literally because of Zap.
Yeah.
You know what I
okay,
mean? That like
yeah.
stacked, kind of distorted,
Right.
and very mid-heavy
It's
claps.
just so not hammy, but meaty. You know, it's
It's the right meat.
right. I
I don't know, but
Okay.
it's good too, though.
But in
Sure.
this case, you just swung the LB's microphone, same
Yeah.
preamp,
That's
same
true.
1073 unison, and then you get the sound you want. How did you do that?
Well, driving the verb in this case is it. But I also knew that when everybody started clapping in front of it, and then I stopped again just to move the tambourine into the other room.
Yeah.
That it was, I could tell already that it was working because there's already sort of mids happening just from that mic in that position with that unison 1073. You know what I mean? There's like the right focus to the mids on that.
Well, what struck me is it sounded good right away. You know, and like
Yeah.
a lot of times when I've seen people try to record an EQ, it takes forever.
Yeah.
And they're doing multiple passes, and you know, trying to make it chunky and.
Yeah.
It just
Nothing bores me more than that.
Right.
And
Yes.
so literally for
Yeah.
25 years I've worked on just being like, okay, let's just go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine somebody like checking the floor mats in the car for like 4 hours? You're like, road trip, you know, and then like 4 hours later after they vacuum the trunk, you know what I mean? Come back around and sort of like polish the dials, and you'd be like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go back to bed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the feeling that I've gotten so many times in sessions where that's happening, and bringing it around quickly. Just again having like a fundamental idea of what it's supposed to sound like, and in this case, informed by Zap for me, we would have known it was wrong after 2 hits, maybe 1, and then let him go one more time, and then known it was wrong. But you would have known after 1 that it wasn't going the way more bounce to the ounce goes.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's to me with vision, it just becomes a tool to get you there. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, you're just kind of like fumbling around, hoping that it does the sound. You know what I mean?
Or you can fix it in the mix.
I mean, that's sometimes partially true.
Yeah,
but
but
it's
it's
so
still fun.
uninspiring for the band, though, or like during the creation process, that it's like I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna
One
keep
pass.
working again. Yeah.
To rule them all.
Yeah.
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change the way you are, baby.
Down, down.
Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change what you ate, baby.
Heard him say I wouldn't amount to much. I heard him say I couldn't cut it in my album suck, cause I was too experimental, played around too much. Just because I wasn't doing all the average stuff. But my people always knew that I was bound to bust. So when they sitting on the streets, give me pounds and hunt. Cause I stuck to my guns, I'm about to funk. Can't help myself, cause the sound enough. Then one by one I tore down the club. So when I stepped on stage, the whole house erupted. Slapped so hard I should've won the Stanley Cup. See, I like to drink a little, talk loud and stuff, because I'm outspoken, that's just the town I'm from. God hell, a pair of jeans I ain't counted up. And these gators sent me back a couple $1,000. But you know, that's what it is, baby, that's what's up. Hey!
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things.
Town now.
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby.
Hey.
Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change the way you are.
Town down again.
Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change it in what you ate, baby.
Had big dreams, but I always lacked the wealth. It just took a little bit to get them off the ground. Along the way, cats offered me an ounce of help. I could have been all in, talking pounds and up. Now 10 year bit over $1,000. Shit, that's less than McDonald's, bruh. If you stretch that out, it don't amount to much. And that's just math, go on, baby, add it up. Ain't bad for a cat that flunked algebra. But ain't nothing wrong with my numbers now, you duck. Cause I always knew how I felt about myself. I learned early on, this ain't for powder puff. That's a thing, man. You got talent, son. You don't always have haters that doubt you, right? It's on you to show them they was out to touch. And then they should have messed with you, they was out to lunch. Hey!
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby.
Don't do it.
Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk.
Tell them.
Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change the way you are, baby. Don't change your face, don't change the way you speak.
Hey.
Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change it in what you ate, baby.
Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from the POG, Brooklyn, New York. Oh, lyrics more, Joe Hamilton, you know. Universal Audio, Joy Overlord. One more time, hit me. Hey. Oh, that's fun. Hey. Y'all ready? Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, 2, 3. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, 2, 3. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, 2, 3. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, 2, 3.
I felt like a cooking show or something, you know. I'd like hurry to finish before the end.
You're in no hurry, Joel. You're on the studio.
Give me one pass.
What are you gonna give me in exchange? Okay, fine, one pass. Because it's you.
Right.
Okay. So before you do that other pass, there's just one interesting thing. Can you just solo the drums?
Sure.
Just so for people to be able to have a mental picture of what it sounds
Of what
like.
I'm using here?
Yeah, because you're not using everything you recorded.
No.
What are you using?
I'm using a tiny bit of the kick in. It could probably just get muted at this point. Snare top, kick out, snare bottom, and then that RE11 that
Which
you
was the-
laughed at.
I laughed with. I laughed with.
Right.
At-
Laughed
it's-
with the
It's
microphone.
different. It's different.
That's an amazing concept.
Hit it.
Okay.
So you're not using your fancy eyeball microphones. You're not using your rooms. You're not using the
Not yet.
after one.
Not yet. I may wind up with a little bit of the Bova balls because they kind of open it up in the stereo image, especially at the end. When we got to the end, I started to wish they were there.
Okay, but
You
let's
know?
hear this.
Yeah.
What you
Yeah,
felt.
where I landed here. Also, I needed to kick out until here. And then you guys.
Cool.
That's the RE11.
Okay, actually,
Around too much.
that last thing you just heard, that's the microphone that we laughed with earlier. The R11 that Joel got for $8 at a yard sale in 1912. He's going to play it again so that you can hear that. And is there any compression or any fancy?
No compression. There's
compression.
EQ. I can take the EQ off here if you want to hear it like that.
That would be interesting for
So
everyone.
here, and no anything now.
No anything.
Just this is what was printed exactly with no compression. There you go, in all its glory.
Then put the stuff back on.
That's it.
Isn't that awesome? Also, if for those of you who I know already are like freaking out on the left side or the right side of the thing, wondering what happened to the bass drum at the beginning, Joel went and muted it manually in Pro Tools to create an effect at the beginning, where there's no fat to the bass drum at the beginning of the song, and when it hits, the bass drum gets fat. And what you're hearing of the bass drum is this one microphone outside. Maybe you could solo that too, so they understand how that works.
There's also a shaker taped to that head where this
Okay.
is mic'd, so that's actually adding a little bit of rhythmic intrigue.
Yes.
Mustache wax.
Yeah.
Let me get to where it's not muted. That's pretty much the story there, huh?
Punchy.
So that's very smart because what Joel did is basically he's getting both the part and some definition for every beat from one microphone on the back by taping that shaker to the actual
To the head.
to the actual head, right where the 47 is. Sorry, I got distracted by my phone. That's very unprofessional. So that's interesting. You're not hearing two microphones on the bass drum right now. You're hearing one microphone on the bass drum placed in the right spot. Is there a lot of EQ on your on your?
Yeah, you want to hear that one without it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is without EQ or compression or anything.
Did you?
It's actually kind of subtractive, except
Yeah.
in the way subs.
Yeah.
You know.
And did you EQ it on the way in?
I
on
did.
Newton 73. Is it high pass? How does it work?
That's kick in.
Yeah.
This is kick out.
Okay.
And yeah, there's about a mile of 56, and then I'm pulling out 270. And then this was balanced based on, 6.8 was balanced based on after the shaker was taped to the head.
Right.
Like I changed my mind and I wanted to print a bunch of that because it's such a low endy sound. Obviously I can low pass that to get rid of the shaker altogether if I decided I wasn't going to use it.
I'll translate that back. When sorry, when Joel set up the microphone, first set it up without the shaker, then you added the shaker.
Correct.
The EQ that he has on the Neve mic pre on the way in, before the Apollo converter, there's a little high pass at probably 30 or something, and then a phenomenal amount of 56 hertz, which is that thing. And then you're removing some 270 to remove some mids. And then when Joel added the shaker to the head, he decided to actually own that and make it bright to tape.
There wasn't any of that information there before. It was really just kind of hat bleed.
Yes.
You know, until I doghoused it by putting a moving blanket over the whole thing with a shaker on the front head.
There you go. So you've been granted another pass. What is it that you're going to do on this pass before we bring the band in to judge your work?
Probably
Harshly.
listen to this heart mic, which
Okay.
we could solo for a second here.
Let's do that.
You put things back on here the way they were.
How do you feel about the mix right now? Be honest, he's not listening.
I think it sounds great.
There
I
you
think
go.
I really like the way the low end sounds in particular.
Yeah.
You know, it's really like
Thick.
full, thick, but it's still kind of smooth too. You know, which is nice.
Just like Joel himself.
Yes.
Yes, yes. The mix always follows the mixer. All right, so
So the heart mic, if you guys
this is
remember, is that
the
Earthworks
Mhm.
TC30 Omni microphone that's pointing at the knee-ish of the drummer, depending on how tall the
No,
drummer
the
is.
crotch.
The crotch of the drummer. It's slightly higher than the knee for most drummers. All right.
Yeah. Oh, here's without EQ.
That is a fantastic all-around mic.
And then with the EQ and compression back in, we get this.
Which gives you an insight into the insane pocket this drummer has.
Yeah, as well.
Just
And kit balance.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate there as well. That
Yeah.
one mic, kind of
Yeah.
all these single mics sound pretty great. So
great. So, do your pass. What
Yeah.
do you project you're going to be doing? Adding
using the heart mic. I mean, really just using the heart mic, and then more kind of final tweaks to the overall texture at the plugins there.
I'd like to attract everybody's attention to the fact that you don't have any automation here.
No, yeah, I rarely automate. I rarely do. I mean, I like to find a place where the sounds have room to move and they all kind of operate in their own space, and you're not trying to sort of drive them into focus one after the other as a sequence of events. They all kind of have a place to live. You know, I do automate.
Yeah.
But-
Well, sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah, of course, but I don't do a lot of automation. I mean, I didn't even turn on the computer for this. You know.
Not the SSL computer.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
even turn on the automation for this on the computer. Sorry. But yes, otherwise this is a computer.
Yes.
It's not even on.
Magical.
Yeah.
Don't change the way you do
too much. I heard them say I couldn't cut it in my album suck, cause I was too experimental, played around too much, just because I wasn't doing all the average stuff. But my people always knew that I was bound to bust, so when they see me on the streets, give me pounds and hugs, cause I stuck to my guns, I'm about to funk. Can't help myself, that's the sound of love. Then one by one I tore down the club, so when I stepped on stage, a whole house erupted. Slapped so hard I should've won the Stanley Cup. See, I like to drink a little, talk loud and stuff, because I'm outspoken, that's just the town I'm from. God help a pair of jeans I ain't counted up, and these gators set me back a couple $1,000, but you know, that's what it is, baby, that's what's up. Hey!
Don't change the way you do things.
Town now.
Don't change the way you do it.
Hey!
Don't change your voice. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are.
Town now again.
Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it in what you ain't.
Had big dreams, but I always lacked the wealth. It just took a little bit to get them off the ground. Along the way, cats offered me an ounce of help. I could have been all in, talking pounds and up. Now 10-year bid over $1,000. Shit, that's less than McDonald's, bruh. If you stretch that out, it don't amount to much, and that's just math. Go on, baby, add it up. Ain't bad for a cat that flunked algebra, but ain't nothing wrong with my numbers down, you duck. Cause I always knew how I felt about myself. I learned early on, this ain't for powder puff. That's the thing, man. You got talent, son. You gon' always have haters that doubt you, bruh. It's on you to show them they was out to touch, and then they should've messed with you. They was out to lunch. Hey!
Don't change the way you do things. Don't change the way you do it.
Don't do it.
Don't change your voice. Don't change the way you talk.
Tell them.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are. Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak.
Hey.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it in what you ain't.
Hey! Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. All the way from the Bay Area, California, transmitting live from Studio G. Brooklyn. Shout out to Universal Audio in the building. You know the voice on site. Lyrics Spawn.
Don't change the way you do things.
Hey!
Don't change the way you do it.
Tell them again.
Don't change your voice. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are. Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak.
Tell them.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it in what you ain't.
Let's go. Yes, indeed. Studio G, Brooklyn, New York. Lyrics Spawn, Joe Hamilton. You know, Universal Audio. Joy Overlord. One more time, hit me. Oh, that's funky. Y'all ready? Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, to the top. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, to the top. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, to the top. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, to the top.
Cool. I think we're good to play those guys something.
Okay, so what happened?
A whole bunch of tiny things.
Like what?
Like the mid character of the claps changed dramatically. I brought up a bit more of like the impact from the inside kick mic, which by itself you would never in a million years go, oh yeah, I'll do that. You know what I mean? I mean, here, look.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sounds a
you
little-
might, but most people are like, oh, but the inside, but that's the kick.
Sounds
you
a
know
little
what I
bit
mean?
like a mosquito passing gas.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
A mid-sized mosquito. Yeah. Yeah, I would do that. I have no shame. No
Same.
shame. Yeah.
All I care about is that it sounds right.
Yes.
And in context, that's working really well for me.
Yeah, very nice definition. What else did I see you do? You balanced a little bit of, you keep balancing a little bit here,
Yeah.
and then also you went to your curve bender
Yeah.
and looked for some air somewhere.
Yeah, it's kind of like some vintage mids, you know what I mean?
Where do
Actually, should be
vintage mids
6.5.
live in your mind?
Well, I mean, in a place that doesn't burn the cutting head when they were making vinyl. So like 6.5, the presence peaks were much lower.
Yep.
Nobody was cranking 12K.
You couldn't do that.
You couldn't do that. You'd burn the cutter head,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So basically like it's immediately a tip of the hat to like a vintage sound when you're boosting treble at, 5 to 8, somewhere in that range.
Yep, that's a magical spot, especially
In
vocals.
general, not
Yep.
just in a vintagey
Yeah.
way, but for sure. I mean, that really animates and brings all the life to the upper mids and can excite the sound,
All right. Well, I think this is fabulous, and of course, you're never really done with a mix, are you?
When I forget that I'm mixing and
Yeah.
I just start listening to the track.
Okay.
I mean, and honestly, like it started to be fun enough
Yeah.
that's why I said, okay, like 3/4 of the way through that one. So I was like,
Okay.
all right, cool, this is fun. Like
Great.
I would play this for my friend without having to make excuses for anything.
Great. So we're going to bring the band in, but first I have a couple community service announcements to make.
Please, by all means.
Yes. So first, here I was told here this one for a change of scenery. First, there's a feedback survey that it would be very kind if you could let us know what you like, what you didn't like, what we can do better. And so that we can take it into consideration because we're going to do many more of these. So that's number one. Number two, I'm supposed to announce the giveaway winner, but I'm going to do that last. Number three, you can share this replay, and so that you can share the love with other friends and show the world of your friends and other people in your band maybe some of these principles, some of Joel's philosophy on how to make records, because the more people are informed in your circle, the better the music gets and the better everybody is and the more fun we all have. And last, I am going to announce the giveaway winner. And the giveaway winner won an Apollo, which is no small feat. This is pretty awesome. It's kind of fun to be able to give
That's
away.
amazing,
Yeah, it's
man.
nice. This is nice. This is nice. And so the giveaway winner. Shall we talk about the weather for a second, just to make people
Oh
feel it?
man, so evil.
Yeah, I am. I'm the root. I'm the source of all evil.
Yeah.
Well, IKEA is the source of all evil. I work for somebody who works for the source of all evil.
Wow.
Yes. All right. So the winner of the giveaway is Joe Clar. Joe Clar. Clar is spelled C-L-A-R, if I can read Ben's handwriting properly. And Joe Clar, you just won an Apollo.
That's amazing.
All right, Joe.
And I know what you're thinking, Joe Clar. Don't call us. We'll call you. We have your email address. You're going to get a really nice email from Universal Audio no later than very soon. I see some movement behind me. Oh, come on in. You should
Yeah,
all
you
come
guys
in.
can get behind us here.
Yeah,
too.
because
Is that
come on in.
sync?
Should be, yeah.
Whatever. I'll check it
And
after.
this
That's
will,
okay.
we're going to listen to
Cool.
the track, and then that's going to be it. So thank you so much, Joel, for
Thanks,
your
man.
time and
Good work.
sharing your ideas.
Really
Thanks,
great.
LB, for the
Thank
beautiful
you.
track.
Pleasure.
That was
Thank you.
awesome. Thanks, everyone,
These guys, most of all,
for
man.
rocking it in one take, I'd like to say.
Yeah.
And thank you, Universal Audio, Gear Slots, and Puremix for putting this together for you people. Hit it.
Let's play the mix that I made for them in 3 passes.
Correct. This is a 3-pass mix. Yeah. Here we go.
I like that.
Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do things. Don't change, don't change, don't change the way you do it, baby. Don't change your walk, don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing, don't change the way you are.
too much. I heard them say I couldn't cut it and my album sucked, cause I was too experimental, played around too much, just because I wasn't doing all the average stuff. But my people always knew that I was bound to bust, so when they see me on the streets, give me pounds and hunt, cause I stuck to my guns, I'm about to funk. Can't help myself, that's the sound of love. Then one by one I tore down the club, so when I stepped on stage, the whole house erupted. Slapped so hard I should've won the Stanley Cup. See, I like to drink a little, talk loud and stuff, because I'm outspoken, that's just the town I'm from. God help a pair of jeans I ain't counted up, and these gators set me back a couple $1,000 bucks. But you know, that's what it is, baby, that's what's up. Hey!
Don't change the way you do things.
Town now.
Don't change the way you do it.
Hey!
Don't change your words. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are.
Town now again.
Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it to what you think.
Had big dreams, but I always lacked the wealth. It just took a little bit to get them off the ground. Along the way, cats offered me an ounce of help. I could have been all in, talking pounds and up. Now 10 year bit over $1,000 bucks. Shit, that's less than McDonald's, bruh. If you stretch that out, it don't amount to much. And that's just math wrong, baby, add it up. Amen for a cat that flunked algebra. But ain't nothing wrong with my numbers down, you duck. Cause I always knew how I felt about myself. I learned early on, this ain't for powder puff. That's the thing, man, you got talent, son. You gon' always have hitters that doubt you, bruh. It's on you to show them they was out to touch. And then they should've messed with you, they was out to lunch. Hey!
Don't change the way you do things. Don't change the way you do it.
Don't do it.
Don't change your words. Don't change the way you talk.
Tell them.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are. Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak.
Hey.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it to what you
Hey! Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from the Bay Area, California, transmitting live from Studio G. Shout out to Universal Audio in the building. You know the voice on site, Lyrics Spawn.
Don't change the way you do things.
Hey!
Don't change the way you do it.
Town down again.
Don't change your words. Don't change the way you talk. Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change the way you are. Don't change your face. Don't change the way you speak.
Town now.
Don't change the way you do your thing. Don't change it to what you think.
Let's go. Yes, indeed. Studio G, Brooklyn, New York. Lyrics Spawn, Joe Hamilton. You know. Universal Audio. Joy Overlord. One more time. Hit me. Oh, that's fun. Y'all ready? Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12. Get up, get down, get on the floor. Come on, ain't that what y'all came here for? Get off the wall on the count of four. Come on, 2, 12.
Excellent.
Man, you guys slayed it.
Yeah,
For real.
Very nice. Really, really awesome.
Really great.
Beauticious. All right.
I love Colombians.
That happened.